Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen stories. In this video, an insane Karen demanded that I give her spoiled child my semi-truck for his birthday. What she did next absolutely shocked me. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one starts like this. So we are going back in time to 2004 when I worked at a chain department store. Let's just call it Le Bonbon. I was 22 years old at the time and floated between the departments. That evening I was covering the kids department by myself, facing and folding, fixing the tables, checking the changing rooms, etc. A woman with 3 small children, let's say 3, 5 and 7 if I had to guess, was at a table pulling out shirts to hold them up and then tossing them back in crumpled heaps, forming a pile. Her kids joined in, making a mess as well. Damn, I would have to straighten and fix the entire table. The woman and her kids move along, I fix the table, which takes some time, before returning to the counter. I hear kids laughing and shrieking. Close to the counter in the kids section we had a little round sitting area facing a wall of TVs. Various kid-friendly shows played on low volume on each screen. It was a chaotic scene to behold. The 3 kids were there jumping and climbing all over the short benches, no mother in sight. I do a quick search and cannot find her. I get my manager next. LP is pulled in, we talk to the kids who are super hyper to get their mother's name. We call her over the loudspeaker, we wait, no one comes. Our LP contacts more security, they call her over their loudspeaker and 10 minutes later she comes storming in, furious, a bag from another store and a huge cup from the food court in her hands. She demands to know why we called her, we explain the situation with her kids being left unattended in our store and she flips out stating that the girl, she points at me, is there to watch the kids in the kids section and that's why there's a big wall of TVs there. It is so mothers can go shopping stress-free. LP and my manager tell her that's not how it works. She asks if we have any idea what it's like to go out shopping with 3 young kids in tow. She is frothing at the mouth. At this point, her kids are tearing up tables again, running and screaming, having a blast. She is asked to leave and throws her cup of soda at the floor. Before you can do anything else, she grabs up her smallest child and shrieks at them that they are leaving. Le Bonbon is the most horrible place ever and she'll be calling corporate about our misconduct. It's been 20 years. Sometimes I still wonder how those kids turned out. And yeah guys, sadly, probably these kids won't turn out much different than their mother. And sadly, that's not even their fault. Either way, the next one is titled, Karen demands I give her spoiled child my semi-truck for birthday. So I had a run-in with a Karen about a month ago. Now, I believe myself to be a pretty calm person. I don't normally hold grudges like this, but this lady pissed me off to no end. I've never, throughout my life or my career, ever even imagined coming across someone so insufferably entitled and self-important like this one. Even just thinking about it makes my blood boil. I've always believed in stepping back from these situations and being the bigger person, but this lady and her spoiled brat of a child needed a reality check. So this all went down at a truck stop of one of my usual routes. It was a newer stop that I'd started frequenting out of convenience. It comes at that perfect time during most of my deliveries when I start to get hungry and need to stretch my legs. It's usually busy, which can be a pain, but I normally don't mind. I typically keep to myself and enjoy my food in my semi-truck's cabin. It's a nice, spacious sleeper cab that I've worked my butt off to afford. I always order my food at the service station and head back to the cab to eat it. I was returning to the cab that day with my food when I found this snot-nosed little booger picker pulling at the door handle of my truck with his mom standing behind him. I was slightly alarmed, but the door was locked, so I was not too worried. I approached them as calmly as I could, asking them what they were doing with my truck. The kid's mom turned around looking startled at first, but her expression turned into this forced smile as she immediately reached out to shake my hand. "Oh, so this is your truck? My son here saw it and just fell in love with it. Would you mind if he played with it for a while? It's his birthday today and he just loves trucks." Before I could even react, this kid came in, nearly shoving his own mother out of the way to beg me firsthand for my truck. She laughed it off and continued, "Please, it would be so generous of you." I let out a nervous chuckle and tried to decline as politely as I could. I really was not trying to offend her, I just wanted to eat my food in peace. So I said, "No, sorry, I use this thing for work. I cannot afford any damages." She responded immediately as I finished my sentence, almost like she rehearsed this thing beforehand. "Oh, would you please? It would mean so much to him. We will take good care of it, right, Brayden?" He looked at her and then looked back at me, nodding so vigorously his head nearly flew off. "Ha, sorry, but I really can't." "But it's his birthday, just for a little while, please. I will pay you." I shook my head no and started walking towards the door, trying to escape the situation. "I'm really sorry, but happy birthday, kid." But she kept going. Her tone was starting to get more forceful, but her smile had not dropped. The kid was starting to pout. "Come on, you wouldn't be so cruel to him on his birthday, would you?" I stared back at her in disbelief. She wouldn't take no for an answer. "He is such a good boy. He deserves it. Don't be so selfish." Well, I'm not being selfish. I seriously cannot afford to have him damage anything. I've still got a long drive ahead of me and it's important that I get to where I need to without any issues. "You are selfish. This is a very special day for my son and I'm offended that you would even imply that he could be an issue." At that point it felt like every time I pushed back against her, insisting, she would get more ballsy and take advantage of my patience even further. I was quickly starting to run out of patience though, and I knew that she could tell because she was starting to get visibly upset. I did not say that he was an issue, but I'm not looking to argue. Now, if you would please excuse me, I gotta get going soon. She scoffed and stared at me like I was speaking another language. "You're really that heartless, huh? You cannot be bothered to let a child play with your stupid truck for just a minute? What is so important about it that you cannot just let him play with it? It's his birthday today and this is how you treat him?" Now she was trying to get under my skin and it was working. I've been a truck driver for almost 17 years now. Half of my life has been spent on the road trucking just for the love of it. I work hard at my job and I was able to afford that truck because of that. That truck really is something special to me. I was not gonna give up my livelihood for this kid's birthday party. Are you done? I already told you I cannot let your kid play with it. I cannot risk him damaging my stuff. It's not a toy for him to play with. It is my job. Now go away. She was getting really ticked off now. Her face was getting red. "Wow, you're really despicable, you know that?" "Oh yeah? Uh-huh. You're a jerk." "Okay," she scoffed at me again. It looked like she wanted to say something, but all she could manage was this death stare and shaking angrily. She looked down at her kid, who looked confused at this whole mess, and looked back at me. "Brayden, let's go." "But mommy, I want the truck." "Let's go." She grabbed his arm and stormed off with him, and with that I was finally free to hop into the cab and eat my food. It was cold already, but I was just glad to be done with them. It was not over though. Halfway through my meal, I noticed the lady still in the area staring at me. We made eye contact and from there it was clear that she wasn't giving up just yet. I was desperate to just finish my food and get out of there, but I ended up getting a call from dispatch. Now, I'm not stupid. I knew that I couldn't leave that Karen alone with my truck, but I had to take that call. Unfortunately, my hands were greasy from my food and I'm no slob, so I quickly left for the bathroom to wash my hands. I got back very fast, but she was nowhere to be seen. At that point I assumed she had just left. My big mistake was assuming that that psycho of a lady would just go on with her day. I took the opportunity to stretch my legs and call my dispatcher back. I walked around the stop and made sure not to stray too far from my truck, but it was not enough. I had my back turned so very briefly, but it was long enough for that brat and his mom to completely deface my truck while I was not looking. When I turned back around, I saw them finishing up and nearly popped a damn vein. I hung up on dispatch immediately and ran towards my truck, yelling at them to stop what they were doing. I was beyond enraged, but what pissed me off the most was her face. She was smiling. The amount of damage they had done in such a short amount of time was astounding. They destroyed the headlights, keyed up the cabin, and smeared this disgusting stuff all over the door and windows. I was pissed as all hell. I yelled at them asking what the hell they thought they were doing, and they had the audacity to laugh at me. "Serves you right, doesn't it?" she said, smirking at me. I turned to the kid and saw him giggling. That's when I reached my limit. This is the kind of example this lady is setting? This is the kind of lesson she's teaching her kids? That you could just harass innocent people into doing what you want and punish those who don't comply? Hell no, that's not the way the world works, and I knew that I had to teach them that lesson the hard way. You will be paying for this, I told her firmly. She still had the audacity to argue back. No, I won't. You got what you deserved. We will see who deserves what after I call the cops on you. The kid looked terrified after I said that, and her smile dropped partially, but she wasn't ready to leave her fantasy land just yet. Oh, and what are you gonna do? You cannot prove I did anything anyway. Maybe if you were just a little kind to a little boy on his birthday, it wouldn't have had come to this. Well, I have a dashcam that's always on during my deliveries, and I'm sure if I check the footage right now, I could prove you did it. She looked even more concerned now, but she still wouldn't accept the situation. As I began calling the police, she tried as hard as she could to gaslight me into believing what I saw was not true and that it was all somehow my fault, but I ignored her. When the police finally arrived, she immediately tried to plead her case to them, but eventually they ignored her as well. I retrieved the footage from my dashcam, and that's when we all saw what really happened. As I started replaying the footage for the cops, the lady kept interrupting and trying to distract us, so they separated her from us while we watched the video. It's a good thing they did separate her too, because what we saw was even worse than I thought it would be. The footage showed her emerging from behind a nearby truck after I left the area. She came in dragging her kid by the hand before stopping in front of my truck. The kid looked a little worried at first, but she ended up pressuring him to start kicking at my headlights. While he did that, she took her keys out from her purse and started slashing at my door like a maniac. It was disturbing to watch, but she wasn't done yet. She gave the kid a napkin and clearly instructed him to blow his nose in it. Then she took the napkin and smeared it all over the door and window. She was just finishing up when I showed up. The officers were appalled, and honestly so was I. They immediately went to go arrest her after the playback ended and took the kid in for questioning. They asked me a few questions and then instructed me to go on with my day for now and that they will keep in touch. Immediately after they left, I had to call dispatch back and inform them what happened while I was at the truck stop. My semi-truck was completely vandalized, but thankfully they did not touch the trailer, so I was able to finish my delivery after. I had to take a short break from driving after this all went down because my headlights were ruined. When the court date finally arrived, she was convicted of a misdemeanor and was ordered to pay for the damage done to my truck. She cried and begged for forgiveness only after she was officially charged. It was pathetic to watch because I know she only felt bad about getting caught. Unfortunately for her, I still was not satisfied with this outcome. When I went back home that day, I took the dashcam footage and got to work editing it. I blurred out their faces and posted it online. I was still pissed from the entire situation, and I just wanted someone to see what I had experienced. It started gaining traction quickly, and about a week later I found myself being bombarded with questions asking for details. It was a pleasant surprise, and I was glad to see people's responses to the situation were almost as enraged as I was. It took a lot of the stress that I had off my mind for a while, and my truck was fully repaired soon after. I got back to driving as soon as I could. Since then it's been smooth sailing. I've made sure to make stops less frequently though. Overall I was able to recover from the incident pretty well. It feels like a pipe dream even just talking about it now, but I still get a little upset when I think about what that lady was trying to do that day. It's really insane what some people think they can get away with, but I'm glad they ended up getting what they deserved. Hopefully that taught them a lesson, because they would be crazy to ever try something like that again. If there's anything I would want someone to take away from my situation, it would be to never let someone push your boundaries. That Karen went way too far, literally trying to take my property for her benefit. If I had not stayed firm and let her have her way instead, who knows how much further she would have gone that day. Who knows how many other people she would have harassed to get her way as well. All I know is that she won't ever get a damn thing from me, and neither will anyone else like that. Never be afraid to tell someone no. And the next one is another entitled parent story titled "Entitled Parents Want a Private Lift for Their Kid." So this happened tonight. Our building's fire alarm went off and we were all evacuated. There's over 20 floors in our building and only 2 lifts. For the sake of the story, I will refer to the entitled parent as EP and me as, well, me. After we got the all clear to head back in, everyone started to file back into the building and line up at the lifts. Suddenly, we hear a woman's voice call out, "Do you mind if we go first? We have a baby." I don't really believe that's a valid excuse, especially when there are so many people with stressed animals waiting to get back inside like everyone else. Nevertheless, we let EP through to the front and the lift arrives. This is where the entitlement cranks up. EP blocks us from scanning our fob and says, "Do you mind?" Me, what? EP, "Can you stay here so we can take the lift and we will send it back down to you?" Well, mind you, the lift is big enough for about 10 people and they are 2 adults holding a baby. Me, "Why can't we go in as well?" "Because we have a baby." "So? It will be quicker if you stay here and we go up and send the lift back down to you." I ended up grabbing my roommate and saying, "F that, get in here. Lady, there's an entire building waiting for these lifts. No, you cannot take the lift up with no one else in it." The added 2 stops to their journey would have honestly added about 30 seconds to the entire trip. I should also specify that the baby was not fussing, crying, distressed or anything. The dude was just chilling, watching everyone. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I live in a massive condo building that houses about 160 people, which means a lot of families. The one thing I hate is that the condos are not cheap and we spend a lot of money trying to live in a good area and in a decent city. On top of that, these 2 buildings and a few others are all controlled by an HOA that collects fees every month. I don't want to, but it was part of the contract and I wanted to live here. Also, it's fairly standard here and finding a place without an HOA means going far away. These details all might seem oddly specific, but bear with me because they will come together. Every certain number of years, the buildings get an inspection to make sure they are livable. They also give the HOA a list of things that are technically fine, but need repairs for the next time they come and visit. We as the owners never get to see or hear about this information. We just pay the HOA and they are meant to take care of the buildings. Well, it turned out that the HOA group was taking our money, but not actually using it to make sure the buildings stayed secure. My guess was they got away with it for so long because the inspections were pretty famously lax around here until a building went down and then we got a new mayor the year after. Anyway, it turned out that during an inspection problems were found and the HOA now wanted us as the owners to pay for it. They had a meeting and of course letters were sent out to anybody that missed it. I was one that just got the letter and had to be filled in later with more details from my neighbors. They wanted each of us to pay almost $200,000, claiming they needed $32 million in order to get the buildings up to code and pass inspection. I thought it was some kind of joke. But no, they really did expect us all to be able to cover up that kind of money. It's a nice area, but the people here have money, but not to that degree. There was so much chaos from this that they had to hold a second meeting just to explain things and try to answer questions. They did not get to explain much, but there sure were a ton of questions they had problems answering. Man number 1, "We pay every month and that's meant to go to repairs. What happened to that money?" HOA, "This is an emergency situation and your normal monthly fees just cannot cover it." Man number 1, "You either have been using the money for maintenance and there shouldn't be any issues, or you have been hoarding it and it should be there." A chorus of people agreed with him and the HOA had no logical answer to this aside from saying the same crap that sounded rehearsed. Man number 2, "You say that it will cost $32 million. I wanna know if I'm paying a ton of money to keep my home, what exactly that money is going towards." HOA, "The inspectors have given us a list and we estimated the cost based on that." Again, not telling us anything on the list or how they came to this conclusion. The meeting basically ended with the HOA saying this. HOA, "Listen, without the repairs the building is not gonna be safe and then shut down. Either we all need to get on board and do this or nobody's gonna have a place to live." This did not do anything to calm people down or give them more answers. I will say that nobody wanted to pay money and a bunch of owners were having our own meetings without the HOA. Meetings that involved lawyers and trying to find out how much the HOA had been screwing us over for years. Nobody liked the idea of needing to move out, and if they asked for maybe $1,000 per person, we would have done it. The money just was not there and we needed to know if we had to leave. We as a group decided to sue the HOA for misusing our money and digging into what happened to it, as well as suing them for neglecting the building which they were responsible for. The court was a total crap show for them, and going into detail might make this story go on forever, so I need to give some highlights of what happened and answers we got. The first thing was what happened to all the money we'd been giving them for years. After looking into things, they spent next to nothing on upkeep and instead had been taking the money for themselves. This is otherwise known as embezzlement, a criminal offense. The second was finding out about our building being a hazard and in danger of being shut down. While it was true that we needed things fixed, it was not not as bad as the HOA told us. The building was not in danger of collapsing, and it would not cost $32 million to fix it. Not cheap either, but basically what he was asking from each person. Extortion, another crime. The last big one was the fact that they neglected to care for the building, which was on their side of a legally binding contract. We were entitled to all of the money we gave them other the years since it wasn't being used in the way it was agreed upon. For that, they got a charge of criminal negligence and another that I cannot remember the name of. Something about fraud with the contracts. That's 3 pretty major crimes they were being found guilty of. Not to mention all the smaller ones that counted for each condo unit. They were going to prison for a very long time, and when they got out would have no money left. Their bank accounts and assets were seized in order to give us back the money and pay for the building repairs. We all agreed to take less in order for the work to get done and keep our homes. Still, it was a pretty fat check anyway that we got. The HOA was gone pretty much, and we didn't stop fighting until it was agreed a new one would not be allowed. Instead of paying HOA fees, we agreed to a maintenance fee that we would all pay and a building manager instead of an HOA. We were lucky that we didn't all end up losing our homes or even getting into some big accident from a damaged building. I still worry sometimes about the new strategy failing as well, but I try to push it to the back of my mind. Whenever I see workers in the building, it makes me think that my money is going where it is meant to, and that nobody will try to extort me for more. I think everybody else is a little nervous too, but as long as we keep our eyes open, things can stay calm. And as for the HOA members in prison, I hope they rot and I never need to lay my eyes on those dirtbags again. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripestories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.